I've seen it happen more times than I can count. A man who gives his all, ends up losing everything. Money, years of his life, sometimes even his own self-respect. And when you trace it all back, the reason is never what he thinks it is. It wasn't because he loved. It was because he loved blind. He never saw the moves being made just beneath the surface. He didn't understand the unspoken rules of the game, the deep, primal instincts that women ourselves rarely talk about, and often don't even consciously recognize. And that blindness, that fundamental misunderstanding, is why a breakup can feel like a sudden ambush. It's why a divorce can feel like the ultimate betrayal. It's why so many men are left standing in the wreckage of a life they built, asking that one heartbreaking question, what just happened? Well, I'm here to give you the answer. And I'm telling you this as a woman, pulling back the curtain on something most men will never figure out on their own. You walk into a relationship believing in fairness. You believe that if you deposit love, loyalty, and effort, you'll naturally be able to make a withdrawal when you need it. It's a logical, comforting belief. It makes perfect sense. But here is the brutal truth. Women do not operate by that system. We're not villains for it. We're not wrong for it. We are just wired differently. We are guided by a subconscious survival program that has been running for thousands of years. For us, attraction and commitment aren't about a balanced spreadsheet. They are about aligning with what secures the best future, the strongest protection, and the greatest advantage. These events in your life are not random. They are predictable if you know what to look for. So, stay with me, because I'm about to reveal 5 truths, 5 secrets that women live by, but almost never say out loud. And they could save you from the kind of devastating mistakes that millions of good men have already paid for. This is the rulebook you were never meant to see. So let's begin. Let's pull back that curtain. The first truth is one of the hardest for men to accept, because on the surface it feels deeply, profoundly unfair. It's called monkey branching. Think about how a monkey moves through the jungle. It never lets go of one branch until its hand has a firm, secure grip on the next. To let go without having another branch to swing to is to risk a dangerous fall. It's a risk the monkey rarely takes. In the world of relationships, this survival instinct plays out in a strikingly similar way. Many women will almost never leave a relationship without already having another one lined up. Here's how the scene usually plays out. She starts telling you she needs space, or that she's feeling confused about what she wants. You, operating from a place of logic and fairness, take her at her word. You think she's doing some soul searching. You give her the space she asked for, hoping she'll figure things out and come back. You're patient. You try to be understanding. But in reality, while you're waiting, she's vetting. There is almost always another man already in her orbit. Sometimes she's been talking to him for weeks, sometimes months. She's testing the waters. She's building an emotional connection. She is gauging whether that new branch will hold her weight. And she is simply waiting until she feels secure enough in that new option to finally let go of you. This is why the end feels so sudden, so shocking to so many men. One day, seemingly out of the blue, she tells you it's over. And then, within days, sometimes even hours, she's in a new relationship. Her social media is updated. She's seen with someone else. For you, the breakup feels like a sudden, violent earthquake that leveled your entire world without warning. For her, it was a carefully timed, strategic step she had been preparing for in silence. Now, why does this happen? Is it a conscious, evil plan? Rarely. It's deeper than that. Part of it is social conditioning. Society judges women harshly for being alone, and even more harshly for openly dating multiple people. So, to protect their reputation and their emotional state, they ensure they are never left empty-handed between partners. It's a defensive strategy. But the other part, the stronger part, is biology. For a woman's primal instincts, security and continuity are paramount. They often matter more than the romantic ideal of a clean break. Her survival wiring tells her that it is always safer to have a backup, than to risk falling into the unknown. And here is the emotional punch. The part that truly hurts. It's the realization of how much overlap there likely was. While you still believed you were in a committed relationship, working on a problem together, she may have already been on emotional dates, having late-night conversations, and building a future with someone else. The transition to her next relationship didn't start after you broke up. It started long before. And this is where you have to be incredibly careful. While she's lining up her next branch, she might try to keep you on a string with that classic, toxic routine. I hope we can still be friends. Let me be clear. This is almost never about genuine friendship. It's about keeping you as an emotional safety net. A backup to her backup. Someone she can fall back on if the new branch suddenly breaks. If you take only one thing from this first point, let it be this: do not let yourself be the backup plan. When a relationship ends, and she still tries to hold on to you, just in case, you have to recognize it for what it is. It is self-preservation on her part. It is not loyalty, and it is not love. Your power, your dignity, comes from clarity. When the branch is released, you must step back. Let go completely. Don't wait around, hoping she'll swing back to you. Because if she does, it will never be out of pure devotion. It will be out of convenience. And you deserve far more than being someone's convenient option. This leads us directly to the second secret. It's an idea that explains why monkey branching is so effective, and why a man's best efforts can sometimes count for absolutely nothing. It's called hypergamy. And it doesn't care about your sacrifices. From the time you were a boy, you were taught that hard work pays off. That if you put in the hours, if you sacrifice, if you are loyal and dedicated, you will eventually be rewarded. Naturally, you carry this mindset into your relationships. You think, if I love her, support her, fix her car, help raise her kids, and sacrifice for our future, surely, I am building a kind of emotional bank account. I'm making deposits, and when times get tough, that emotional equity will be there. Here is the brutal reality. For her, that account does not exist. Hypergamy, the deep, biological instinct that often drives women to seek the best available option, doesn't keep score the way you think it does. She is not looking at the balance sheet of your past sacrifices when she evaluates the relationship today. She is subconsciously and constantly comparing her current situation to what else is out there. If she perceives a better deal, a man with higher status, more resources, more confidence, or who provides more excitement, your years of effort and sacrifice can weigh almost nothing against the possibility of something more. This is why men who bend over backwards, the so-called nice guys, who give everything, are so often the ones left in complete and utter shock. They believe their loyalty is secured by their investment. They think, after all I've done for her, she would never leave. But your investment only matters as long as she still sees you as her best possible option. The minute she doesn't, the years of cooking for her, fixing things for her, paying for her, and supporting her emotionally can evaporate in a heartbeat. It's not that she's ungrateful. It's that in the calculus of survival and opportunity, the past is not as important as the future. And here is the emotional punch. You could spend a lifetime building something, providing, protecting, sacrificing, but she can walk away in an instant if a man she perceives as being of higher value enters the frame. And it won't be about fairness. It won't be about all the times you were there for her. Hypergamy is not cruel. It is simply indifferent. It doesn't operate on the logic of fairness. It operates on the logic of perceived value. Men who don't grasp this cling to the illusion of security. They see her pulling away, and what do? They double down. They give more, sacrifice more, and try even harder, hoping to lock in her loyalty through sheer effort. But often, the more they give from a place of fear, the more they risk becoming invisible. Their sacrifices are no longer seen as a gift of strength, but as a desperate plea from a man who is afraid of losing her. And that desperation is the opposite of attraction. So what is the way forward? Does this mean you should give up? Become bitter? No. The answer is to stop playing banker in a game that doesn't honor your deposits. Instead of investing everything into her, you must invest in yourself. Build your strength, your confidence, your purpose, your independence. A man who understands hypergamy doesn't resent women for it. He adapts. He makes sure that he is constantly leveling up, not to keep her, but for himself. Because when you live as a man of high value, a man with a mission, you are no longer bargaining for loyalty with your effort. You are commanding it with your very presence. And that single shift changes everything. It pulls you out of a position of desperation and puts you back in control of your own life. This brings us to our third secret. If hypergamy is the underlying software, then this next behavior is one of its most common applications, and it happens far more often and far more quietly than most men could ever imagine. It's the idea that women spin more plates than men realize. When men date casually, seeing multiple women, it's usually somewhat out in the open. They might admit it to their friends. They might not hide their phones. And society, very often, criticizes them for it, labeling them a player. But when women do the same thing, it tends to happen under the radar. They don't announce it. They don't showcase it. And they almost certainly don't tell the main guy they're dating about it. Here is the reality. In today's world, women are frequently managing multiple options at the same time. Some of those options are romantic. Some are purely emotional guys she texts for validation and attention. And some are simply in case. The backup plans. They may not even label it as spinning plates themselves. They might call it keeping my options open or just talking to people. But the behavior speaks for itself. She might be texting one man for an ego boost, while planning dinner with another, while keeping a third reliable man hanging on with just enough occasional attention to keep him interested. I once heard a story from a man who happened to glance at his girlfriend's phone. In her contact list, he saw some unusual names. Names like Dave Lawyer, Chris Contractor, Philip Accountant. These weren't just harmless notes. They were a coded, subconscious way of tracking who brought what to the table. For her, each man was not just a name. He was a potential role, a provider of a specific resource, security, money, adventure, or just a backup. This is why so many men get blindsided. You think you're the only one. You feel that special connection, and you assume it's exclusive. She tells you she's not really seeing anyone else. And you take that at face value. Meanwhile, you could be one of several men orbiting her at the same time, each being evaluated for a different purpose. And here is the emotional punch. While you are investing in her as if she is the only woman in your world, she may be keeping her options wide open, evaluating which plate spins most smoothly, and which one offers the most long-term stability. In your world, what you're doing is called commitment. In her world, what she's doing is called insurance. Now, why does this happen? Again, it comes back to risk management. Women carry more social and biological risk when it comes to dating and relationships. Being openly non-exclusive can bring judgment and damage their reputation. So, they keep it quiet. But the instinct behind it is survival. Having multiple options dramatically lowers the chance of being left with nothing. So, what should you do with this knowledge? First, don't be naive. Do not assume exclusivity until it has been explicitly and clearly agreed upon, and much more importantly, proven by consistent, reliable action over a significant period of time. Words are easy. Consistent behavior is the truth. Stop confusing her attention with commitment, and pay attention to the patterns. Does her availability seem to fluctuate wildly? Does she disappear for stretches of time with vague explanations? Does her story sometimes shift depending on the day? These are not accidents. They are often signals. The point here isn't to demonize women for this. The point is to wake you up to the reality that your position in her life might not be as secure as you imagine it to be. And once you see that clearly, you will stop over-investing in someone who hasn't made you her one and only priority. Because in the end, your value is not measured by how well you can compete for a place in her rotation. Your value comes from knowing you don't need to compete at all. Now, Let's talk about what happens after the plates stop spinning, after you're in a committed, long-term relationship. Many men believe this is the finish line. They think, we made it. We're stable. Now we can relax. This belief is the foundation of our fourth secret, and it's one of the primary reasons so many marriages fail. The secret is this: women get bored faster than men. If you look at long-term relationships, especially marriages, you'll notice a very distinct pattern. Men often settle into stability and routine, and they feel a sense of peace. Comfort feels like success. He thinks, we've built a life. We have our rhythm. This is good. But for many women, that same rhythm can quickly turn into monotony. What feels safe and secure to you can feel suffocating and boring to her. And this isn't just an opinion. The research backs this up overwhelmingly. In marriages and long-term partnerships across the Western world, women initiate the vast majority of breakups and divorces. The numbers vary slightly, but they are consistently around 70%, and in some studies, even higher. Why? Because while a man's desire in a long-term relationship tends to remain steady or fade very gradually, a woman's desire often plummets soon after the initial honeymoon phase is over. Once the novelty fades, once the mystery is gone, so is much of her passion. Think about the timeline. You might be 5-10 years into a relationship and still feel content, even if things aren't perfect. But she may already be daydreaming about what's missing, what could be better, or who else might provide the spark, the excitement, the feeling of being desired that she no longer feels with you. This is why so many men are left completely stunned when they hear those infamous words. I love you, but I'm not in love with you anymore. It's not because something catastrophic happened. It's not because you had a huge fight. It's because her emotional and physical interest drained away, slowly and silently, much faster than yours did. And here is the emotional punch. While you are still telling yourself, we're a team, we're doing fine, she may already feel trapped in a cage of predictability. You're okay with the routine. For her, the routine has become a prison. And by the time you finally notice there's a serious problem, she has often already mentally checked out. She's been planning her exit, emotionally detaching for months, or perhaps even lining up a new branch. This doesn't mean every woman is doomed to get bored, or that long-term passion is impossible. But it does mean that men cannot afford to go on autopilot. Too many men win the girl, and then they stop being the man she was attracted to in the first place. They get comfortable. They stop growing. They stop flirting with her. They stop leading. They stop challenging her to stay invested. They assume stability equals permanence. But for a woman's desire, stability without excitement often equals a slow death. So what's the lesson here? You cannot rely on comfort alone to hold a relationship together. You must actively and continuously cultivate attraction, novelty, and growth. This doesn't mean living in constant fear of her leaving. It means refusing to stagnate. Stay ambitious in your career. Stay curious about the world. Stay in physical shape. Maintain your own hobbies and friendships. Be unpredictable in the best ways. Because if you don't provide that masculine energy, that sense of forward motion and excitement, her instincts may eventually drive her to seek it elsewhere. Or she'll simply leave to find it on her own. Remember this. When you are feeling satisfied and comfortable, don't assume she is. The pace of boredom is different for men and women. And if you don't account for that difference, you may one day realize you were left behind, not because you were a bad man, but because you stopped evolving. This leads us to our fifth and final secret. It's the one that involves the ultimate betrayal, and it forces us to confront a narrative that society has been selling for decades. That narrative is this: men are the cheaters. Women are the victims. That's the story you see in movies, hear in songs, and read in magazines. But the data and real-world experience show something very, very different. The fifth secret is women cheat as much as men, but they hide it better. The difference isn't in the frequency of the act. The difference is in the visibility and the strategy. When men cheat, they are often sloppy. They're careless. They get caught because of a random text or a charge on a credit card. It's often impulsive, driven by opportunity. When women cheat, they are generally quiet, strategic, and far more discreet. Here is the unsettling truth. Most women who step outside of a relationship don't do it on a whim. They do it during specific windows of opportunity, often when they feel disconnected from their partner, emotionally neglected, or when their own biology sharpens their drive for novelty and desire, particularly around ovulation. At those moments, the risk of them crossing a line spikes dramatically. What makes this so hard for men to accept is how completely hidden it can be. She might not change her schedule. She might not seem distant. In fact, sometimes she might even become more affectionate to cover her tracks. She might still say, "I love you," every night before you go to sleep. Meanwhile, she is exploring a connection, emotional, physical, or both, that fills a gap she feels you no longer do. To you, life feels normal. To her, she may already be living a double story. And here is the final, emotional punch. When you tell yourself, "She's different. She would never do that to me," you are blinding yourself to a fundamental reality of human nature. Biology does not make exceptions for your relationship. Even the woman you believe would never, ever stray is still human. She is still driven by the same deep-seated instincts for validation, desire, and opportunity as anyone else. And those instincts don't just disappear because you think your bond is strong. So, what should a man do with this dangerous information? Do you panic? Do you start checking her phone? Do you become controlling and suspicious? No, that is the worst possible move. Trying to cage her, to monitor her every step, to suffocate her freedom, only guarantees that you will build resentment and push her away faster than anything else. That approach is a self-fulfilling prophecy. Instead, the answer, as with all these secrets, is internal. It is to become the kind of man she doesn't want to risk losing. That means cultivating your own strength, your own presence, your own purpose. It means living a life so full of direction and ambition that your relationship is naturally drawn into your orbit, not the other way around. When you are grounded in your own power as a man, you don't need to worry about whether she's tempted elsewhere, because she knows that leaving you would mean losing far more than she could ever possibly gain. The point isn't to suspect every woman of betrayal. The point is to stop living under the illusion of automatic loyalty. When you understand that women are just as capable of disloyalty as men, you stop putting blind faith in her words. And you start building the kind of reality for yourself that makes loyalty her most obvious and desired choice. So there you have them. 5 truths that most men will never hear until it's far too late. The truth that women rarely leave without another branch ready to grab. The truth that your loyalty isn't measured by how much you've sacrificed, but by whether you are still her best option today. The truth that she may be keeping multiple plates spinning, no matter how convinced you are that you're the only one. The truth that she gets bored with comfortable routine much faster than you do, which is why so many relationships end at her initiative. And yes, the truth that she cheats just as much as men, but hides it far more effectively. The shift in tone from summary to empowerment now, after hearing all of this, it might be easy to feel bitter, to feel angry, to feel paranoid. But that is not the path of a strong man, and that is not the purpose of this knowledge. These are not accusations, they are realities. Women are not villains, they are human beings, wired with instincts and survival mechanisms that men have been taught to ignore. The problem isn't that women operate this way. The problem is that too many men remain blind to it, clinging to a fantasy of fairness that reality will eventually shatter. And this is the emotional turning point. Being awake doesn't make you bitter. It makes you free. Free to choose a better partner. Free to recognize manipulation and walk away with your dignity intact. Free to build a life where you are the prize, not the backup plan. A wise man, a stoic man, doesn't become paranoid. He becomes aware. He doesn't try to cage his partner with suspicion. He strengthens himself with clarity. When you finally understand the rules, you are no longer a pawn in someone else's game. You step into the role of the man who can't be played, because you see the board for what it really is. If you found value in this message, and you're ready to continue this journey, I ask you to do 3 things. Like this video so this knowledge can reach more men who need it. Subscribe to Stoic Manhood Guide for more essential truths that will strengthen you. And most importantly, share this video with one other man in your life who needs to hear this. You could change his future. Drop a comment below. Tell me which of these truths hit you the hardest. Remember, this isn't just about avoiding pain. It's about reclaiming your strength, your confidence, and your freedom.